Mate, I remember night after night, I'd be in the makeup chair, Sue would be making us up, and sitting next to us, with his unmistakable voice and his very laconic, laid-back manner, was the head of the rural department, John Barnett. And as John walks up, I think it's important to acknowledge all the different program departments, like the rural department, education, sport, that contributed programs. And John, for years, look at the two of them. We had a lot of fun.
We did.
Misbehaved outrageously.
Had a lot of disasters too.
Had a few. You got some in your store of memories?
I'd forgotten really about this until it was all prompted by what has gone before, and I thought of my first experience on television. It was the Royal Show 1962 when we did a 4-hour live telecast with some filmed inserts into it. I had to do 3 things. The first was to interview the owner of the Grand Champion dairy cow, which was extremely easy. It was a beautiful cow. I knew about cows and dairying, and beautiful. That was my first bit of television. I thought, this is wonderful. I then had to move down for about 3/4 of an hour later to the log chop arena, where I was handed a microphone on a lead and told that we were shooting the log chop, and when it finished I was to grab the winner and interview him for 5 minutes. There was a dead heat. So with great aplomb I said, I know this sounds rather naive, but I thought it was very smart at the time, I said to them, I believe your axes are so sharp that you can actually shave yourself with them. And one of them said yes, and I said, well, will you go over and get a new axe, because that'll be a bit blunt, and show us. So he went away, and I turned to the other winner, and I said, how many logs have you chopped for this event? He had a hare lip and a cleft palate. So I talked to him for the rest of the time until the axe came back. The log chop arena at the showgrounds was there. There was a big hump, and where Sideshow Alley is today was the shearing arena. And that was the year that a brand new method of shearing came out called tally high. And the Australian shearing champion was a bloke called, Kevin Saar.
Well done.
And this was set up for 10 minutes, and the idea, we had a big clock set up on the stage, and the idea was that I was to introduce Saar, talk to him a bit, then he was going to shear by the current method and do that slowly and show it. Then he was going to do it by the new method and do that, show it, and then against the clock he was going to do the tally high flat out one and show how fast it was compared to the old method. Hence we were allowed 10 minutes. Floor manager, little...
Noel Williamson.
Yes, Noel.
Noel, God bless him, God rest his soul.
Yes.
Noel Williamson.
Noel, floor manager, says to me, go. I'm standing there with a huge crowd in front of me. The camera's on the top of the hill over there, no one knows it's there. There is no Kevin Saar. So I began talking about tally high, and I talked about tally high, and the people in front said, speak up, you mug, we can't hear you, you're not on. Because of course I was only hooked up to the television. Kevin eventually arrived, and we had just enough time to do one quick tally high shear, and I was an absolute shaking mess.
John, thank you for joining us and for the years of great television you provided, particularly skillful reading of the news every night.
Peter, could I just say, intersperse this, in the early days of television at 5 to 7, the ABC had to fill in 5 minutes because all the programs were made for commercials to be inserted, and the ABC didn't have commercials then. But at 5 to 7, something happened, and one of the programs each week was called To Market to Market. And either John or John to Fry or somebody else would go through this rack of vegetables and fruit, all looking at their best and smiling at the camera. One evening, somebody had put a very realistic, large plastic rat at the front of the whole lot of fruit. I'll leave it to your imagination what may have happened.
And Peter's much-loved Sandra Harris, who's much-loved definitely, she would insist, just before I was to go to air, on coming up and pinching a strawberry or a banana out of this beautifully, I'd spent an hour outlaying this lovely tray of fruit, and Sandra would just wreck my artistry.
John.
I was just thinking, when Earl was talking about the funny little reader's desk we had in the early days, and just a single camera in front of it, and behind the desk there was a curtain, and behind that curtain was the weather map, and the whole thing was done. Nowadays it's all so clever with everything moving and so on. In those days, we had to, as soon as you finished reading the news, you had to duck out of the way, floor manager pulled back the curtains, and John Barnett would come in behind the desk there, do you remember, and do the weather. And I remember on one occasion, we had a new cameraman on, and instead of irising in, he tracked in and went up and hit the front of the desk and pinned the desk to my tummy and pinned me to the weather map. And I had to finish reading the news with the camera right there. And these are the sort of things that happened when television was live. It was great fun.